Hey there, Mama Work It Tribe. I'm Marissa Lonick, working mom of 4, lover of all things flow, family, and fulfillment. You're tuning in to the Mama Work It podcast, where we take aim at overwhelm, mom guilt, and exhaustion and swap them out for big dreams, belly laughs, and productivity that actually fits into your life. Every week, we dive into tips, motivation, and a healthy dose of fun so you can slay your day even when you're busy AF. Ready to feel seen, energized, and totally unstoppable? Let's get to work, mama. Hello, mama friends. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome back to the Mama Work It podcast, where we support women in the juggle of mom life, work life, wife life, fill in the blank life. If you are new here, my name is Marissa Lonick. I am your host, founder of Mama Work It, working mama of 4 kiddos. So excited today to introduce you to our guest. Her name is Julienne Verdi. She is the executive director of the Alliance for Headache Disorders Advocacy and its sister organization, the Headache Alliance. Julienne is a graduate of Brooklyn Law School, where she was an associate managing editor of the Brooklyn Journal of International Law, chair of Brooklyn Law Students for Reproductive Justice, and recipient of the Platinum Public Service Award and Evelyn Reed Memorial Prize. Prior to AHDA, Julienne provided transactional legal services as well as political and nonprofit consulting services in New York City. Julienne also served as the Director of Government Relations at Planned Parenthood of New York City, a judicial law clerk, and she completed a postgraduate legal fellowship at Safe Horizons Immigration Law Project, where she provided immigration services to victims of crime. Julienne also founded Move Forward Staten Island and served as the organization's chair for 5 years. As chair of Move Forward Staten Island, Julienne served as a lead organizer for the Staten Island People's Climate March in April 2017, and she also directed and pronounced an award-winning short documentary titled Staten Island's Huddled Masses, an Immigration Story Project in September of 2019. As if this wasn't enough, Julienne also made history in November 2021 as the first openly LGBTQIA+ identifying individual to be elected to public office in Voorhees Township, where she was elected to the Board of Education. In addition to all these accomplishments, Julienne is the proud wife of Kevin Laurie, founder of Lead Forward, and mother to her 4 young children, Jude, Sloan, Monroe, and Cambria. Julienne, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. Well, I know that was a lot and you've done quite a bit, but I'd love to hear straight from you. Tell us more just about your journey, what led you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my story definitely starts in my childhood, as all of ours do. My parents divorced when I was just 2.5 years old. And while my dad was in my life, I was mostly raised by my single working mom. She worked in telecommunications, running telephone lines, essentially construction. And when I was in middle school, she was actually badly injured. And she worked at the World Trade Center about 6 months before 9/11. She was badly injured at the job and went out on disability. She also remarried when I was around 5 or 6 years old, and that relationship was really abusive. So I grew up watching my mom's resilience, but also how systems failed her. So before she was able to go out on disability, she was actually fired when she got hurt on the job, right? And it was her union that fought to get that job back for her. And then, in terms of the abusive relationship, I watched when the cops would come and just tell my stepfather to take a walk around the block and cool down after, physically assaulting her. And so, seeing her struggles, it really taught me how much laws and policies can either protect people or make life a lot harder. And it really shaped my whole trajectory. So by 16 years old, I was already volunteering on campaigns, going to rallies, and immersed myself in politics. I went to law school knowing that I wanted to use policy to really try to create change. And after graduating, I landed what I thought was the dream job in women's rights policy and government relations. It's something I had worked my whole life towards. And I loved that job. But then I became a mom and everything shifted overnight. I was commuting 2 hours each way every day, traveling constantly for work and missing my baby. I'd leave in the morning, he'd be still sleeping, and I'd come home and he'd be going to bed, and I would never see my kid. And again, while I love my work, I was miserable. My boss ended up asking me to take on a larger role in the organization. I was excited about it. But since I was going to be taking on more work, I asked for a small raise. And I was told something to the effect of, well, you just came back from maternity leave. How would that look? And that gutted me, absolutely gutted me. And that was really a turning point in my life. And I realized I needed to walk away from something that I thought was my dream job to chase my dream life. So I started my own practice so that I could work from home and be present in my kids' lives. Like, I wanted my career, but I wanted to be a mom too. That was so important to me. And my whole life just changed. And so I started working from home and, built this practice. I went thinking I was going to start just doing, kind of traditional legal services, but kind of once I started working with nonprofits, they really needed support in consulting. So became more of a nonprofit consultant, which I loved. And the opportunity came up. I saw this, job description open for the executive director of a nonprofit in the migraine and headache space. I would be their first paid employee. And I thought, hey, this is interesting. I live with migraine. I've had it since I was a kid. Both my parents have it. And I thought, what an interesting way to sort of take something, take my lived experience, my professional experience, and kind of mesh them together and do some good. And so I've now been with the organization for about 4 years, and I absolutely love it. It made me so fulfilled and proud to be leading this work. And I've been able to still structure my life in a way that I'm still at, the class parties at school and things like that while I travel a lot for work. I've really made sure that I've negotiated a really solid work-life balance. And, as much as I grieved the loss of the dream job, 10 years ago, I never could have imagined how well it would have worked out all these years later.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all those details. And something you said just really hit me hard. And I want to repeat it because I think it was so critical and important that your dream job wasn't the same as your dream life, at least in that season.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it was hard to accept at first. I tried, I went back to work. I stayed for a while. And but I just realized this is something, my life has shifted. This is not it anymore. This is not what I want my life to be. And so, it took a lot of strength to finally say, something's got to change, and take a leap of faith. It was really scary. We needed my income, to be able to do this. And, I'm really grateful that I had, the privilege to take this risk and, the support of my family, along the way to help me do this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, all right. So you're leading this national advocacy organization and you're juggling family life, all while living with migraines yourself and supporting your son who also lives with migraines. I personally don't have this experience, but what's your best advice for managing ambitious professional goals alongside parenting through chronic illness?
Yeah, it's a constant struggle. I'll start with that. So I actually live with multiple chronic conditions. I live with migraine. I live with a condition called ankylosing spondylitis, which causes pain and inflammation in my spine and other joints. I also have POTS and histamine intolerance. So pain and fatigue is a part of my daily reality. And the best advice I can give is to give yourself grace and permission to rest, and to be open about your needs. And that has been a real journey for me. So early in my career, I talked about how I faced this kind of, what I perceive as pregnancy discrimination. And it left such an impact when I had my youngest baby. I had my first child. And so when I had my last child, so I have 4 kids in total. When I had my last child, I was in my current role. And I was so nervous because I was pregnant so early in taking the job that I did not tell my board that I was pregnant, and it was COVID. So no one was seeing me. I was working remotely, and I went through a pregnancy. No one knew I was pregnant. I also didn't tell anyone when I went to the hospital and gave birth. I didn't take a single day off, and I joined a board meeting the day I came home from the hospital, and it was a really traumatic birth. Looking back, that was a terrible decision. It was bad for my health. It was bad for my family. And it was even bad for the organization, right? And it wasn't fair. I never gave my job the opportunity to support me. And, again, it makes sense, right? I went through such a terrible experience in, my previous job. So I just assumed every employer is like that. And that's not the reality, right? You can have really supportive people in different organizations, and every job is different. So now I have a board that literally tells me to rest, right? They encourage me to take care of myself because they know that when I'm healthy, I'm a better leader. And so, I'm still working on this balance, but I think the lesson is clear that you have to put on your own mask before you can help others. And sometimes that means saying no, setting boundaries, and just being really open and honest about what you need. I also use the power of storytelling, I think, in my day-to-day life. So, when I'm in a congressional meeting with a member of Congress or their staff, I might not be able to reschedule that meeting because it's really important. I've got to take it. But if it's a day that I'm really struggling with migraine, I might use that in the meeting itself. I might start out and say, hey, just want to let you know, I am currently experiencing a migraine attack. And for me, sometimes that means I have something called aphasia where I have difficulty communicating and I might lose some of my words. It might be hard for me to speak. Know that that is happening because of my migraine. And, there are millions of Americans living with this every single day. And it's impacting our economy and yada, 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 right? Like I'll use it in the storytelling and in my job itself. And I have that privilege because of the job that I do. But I think it's important to ask for accommodations, to fight for what you deserve and what you need to balance your chronic illness and take care of yourself while also leading a fulfilling career. I really believe you can do both, but you have to fight and push and advocate for yourself to have that grace and space. But you have to give it to yourself first.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that vulnerability is so hard for people, but I feel like every time I've ever allowed myself to open up and be vulnerable in a space like that level of transparency has always rewarded me. Because it kind of, like you said, it gives the other party the opportunity to display empathy. I mean, we're like so afraid of what the outcome of that will be, but I would venture to guess, and you probably would know this more than me, but like more often than not, people are going to give you some grace in a situation like that rather than write you off.
And if they don't, then you've learned something valuable, right? In that space, you've gotten some interesting knowledge that you can make better decisions in your life, right? You might say, hey, I might not be able to leave this second, but now my eyes are open, right? And I'm going to keep looking. I'm going to start throwing applications in or whatever. I'm going to find myself a better work environment if I am not in one, if I'm not in a supportive space. And obviously there's privilege in that and not everybody can do that. But I think no matter what, you're getting some value. You're either going to get the support you need or you're going to realize that this is not the place for you. And I think both of those experiences are valid and, will set you off in a better trajectory.
Yeah, for sure. So recently, your advocacy contributed to the U.S. Department of Education issuing new guidance recognizing migraine under Section 504. What was it like for you? I can only imagine, but what was it like for you achieving such meaningful policy change, knowing that this is also going to directly impact so many children, but especially your own child?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when my son started experiencing migraine about 4 years ago, I was able to realize really quickly what was going on with him and immediately tried to get him the help he needed. but very quickly realized that, the system is really broken. Even with my privilege, my lived experience, my professional connections in this world, it was nearly impossible to get him the care he needed. And we're still dealing with it, right? Facing medical gaslighting, talking to his pediatricians, and they're just like, oh, just give him some over-the-counter meds. It's fine. It's part of life. And I'm like, no, it doesn't have to be, right? Dealing with those insurance denials, pushbacks from school administrators trying to get him the support he needs. And it was, all of this struggling, even with the resources that I had, you can't help but think about other moms who don't have these things. How are other moms fighting for their kids? And, really where that took us was, hey, the Department of Education doesn't have formal guidelines out on the accommodations that kids with migraine are eligible for. And so what we were hearing across the country is that it was really dependent on school districts. So some school districts were being really, really supportive. And even within the school districts, different schools within the school districts were treating migraine differently because there wasn't, formal guidance out there. And so we decided we needed to do something to change that. And so the first thing that we did a few years ago was go to the Department of Education directly and ask them to issue this a formal guidance on Section 504 and IDEA, where IEPs come from, and say, a child living with migraine could meet the criteria of needing either a 504 plan or an IEP. At first, they didn't seem all that interested in our idea to do this. So we turned to legislative advocacy. We worked with members of Congress. We have an event every year, twice a year, called Headache on the Hill, where we train patients, caregivers, medical providers, and researchers all together to go to Congress to advocate for policies that impact people living with migraine and headache disorders. So we made this a Headache on the Hill ask. So we trained all of our advocates from across the country to go talk to their members of Congress about them and ask the member of Congress to send a letter to the Department of Education asking for this guidance. Out of one of those meetings, former Representative Cori Bush agreed to lead this letter, which we were thrilled with, and we were able to get some other members of Congress to sign on to that letter. They sent it, and even once they sent it, there was sort of nothing for a little bit. We kept pushing in the background, understanding the importance of this, and that persistence paid off. And in December of 2024, the guidelines came out. And I can't tell you the joy and pride in seeing this document coming out and knowing that for the first time, parents now have a piece of paper from the U.S. Department of Education that says migraine can be a disability. It is more than just a headache. And, kids experiencing this may need accommodations in school. And here are some of the guidelines. Here are some ideas of what those accommodations can look like. And now parents are empowered. They can print this out. It's on the Department of Education's website. You can also access it on our website. And you can print this out and take it with you to those 504 meetings and take it to your school and say, we need help. And so the Department of Education has said, we could be eligible for that help. And as a mom, obviously that hit close to home, knowing that, my son would benefit from this for sure. But it's not just him. It's so many kids across the country. 17% of children are estimated to be living with migraine. And then when you look at, there's 100 different types of headache disorders, 100 plus types of headache disorders. We know that those numbers are going to be even higher. 1 million kids, an estimated 1 million kids across the country live with chronic migraine, which is defined as 15 or more headache days a month. Think about that, like 15 days a month. And often, recovery from a migraine could take a day or two. So nearly every day, some of these kids are experiencing pain every single day. They need supports in school to be able to, reach their maximum potential. And now hopefully schools can listen and, they have this guideline that empowers parents to fight for what their kids need and deserve in school. So it's something that we're really proud of. And I really think that this has the power to transform the lives of so many kids who need the help.
Yeah. Wow. I did not know those statistics. Thank you for sharing, and just how fortunate the community is to have you spearheading this initiative and the progress you're making. And I'm sure the progress to come, honestly, I can only imagine.
So just this week, later this week or this month, the first ever standalone bill for migraine and headache disorders is slated to be introduced in Congress. And that is something I'm so proud of. But this is not just me. I'm proud to be the face of this and work on this. But hearing the stories of so many of our advocates across the country who are incredibly disabled because of their migraine and headache disorders, and have gone through so much to get to where they are, and struggle, spend days in bed, and all of the things that they go through, they are the motivators. They are also putting their bodies on the line. They come to our events knowing that there's going to be a cost to pay for putting themselves out there, in that they're going to wear their bodies down and they're going to be in pain for, a week to recover from this. And it's all of those folks who've made this a reality and have pushed where we are today. And I'm just grateful to be able to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Final question here on our topic. What advice would you give to a listener who struggles with migraine disorder and feels like it's really just a block? It's prohibiting them from achieving what they want to do, because clearly you have done so much and you continue to do so much while battling this. So what advice would you give to someone else?
I think the first advice is to acknowledge the grief, right? It's okay to say, to feel bad for yourself, to take a moment and give yourself the empathy that you deserve, and grieve the life that you envision for yourself. It is migraine and other chronic headache disorders absolutely take away opportunities, and it's okay to mourn that. But it doesn't mean that your goals are completely out of reach. It just mean that, the path may look a little different for you. And so, I really believe that advocacy can play a really important role in a patient's treatment plan. When you tell your story, when you take action, it gives you a sense of ownership and hope. And it feels like your pain isn't in vain, that you're using it to drive change for yourself and others. And that empowering moment, that feeling, I think can really, help you in your journey. I also think that finding community is really critical. Hiding your illness often leads to self-stigma, and that's harmful both for your physical health as well as your mental health. So connecting with others who understand what you're going through can help give you the strength to push through, and figure out a path to getting healthy, right? Learning from others. You can, unfortunately, not all docs are really educated on the cutting edge of headache medicine. And so you can learn a lot from other people who are going through this and be an empowered patient when you're going into your doctor's office, right? Advocacy doesn't just have to be going to Congress. That's my type of advocacy, and I would love more people to join us. But advocacy is also just, in your hometown. It's in your doctor's office. It's in the school. It's in just, raising awareness and telling your story and saying, yeah, I live with migraine and it's not just a headache. These are the things that I experience. I think that, that even on the hardest days, knowing that your story has value, and that you have the power to impact something, even if it's just changing one person's mind, I think can shift something in your brain and really, help you live in this way, live with chronic illness, and not just, have it dictate everything in your life. Having, saying it's not going to go away. This is a forever thing, but it's not going to control every aspect of my life. I'm going to figure out a way through it and figure out a way how to achieve the goals that I want, while, giving myself grace along the way.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Such good tips and advice. All right, Julienne, we're going to move into the part of our show where we're just going to ask you some random, fun, personal questions just to get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. If you could go on vacation tomorrow anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Definitely Sicily. I am actually a dual citizen of the United States and Italy, and I have more family in Italy than I do here. It is my favorite place on the planet. And I would love, I could go back every day if I could. I absolutely love it. And unfortunately, I haven't been back since my son was 1. So without a doubt, Sicily.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life? What would it be? Calories don't count.
Rocky Road ice cream. Don't have to hesitate at all.
Hands down. Okay.
Hands down.
What's one app that you just cannot live without?
I would say Google Maps for sure. I have absolutely zero sense of direction. It doesn't matter how many times I drive to the exact same place. I could get lost in my backyard. It's just embarrassing. So Google Maps saves my life on an everyday basis.
You have other talents, Julienne, you know? What book are you reading right now?
So I'm reading The Headache by Tom Zeller Jr. It's a new book that came out about his experience living with headache and sort of this world. So excited to kind of dive into that more.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Last question. What's your go-to, just like motivating, get it done song?
Rebel Girl by Bikini Kill. And I have used this before every single birth. I went, late with a bunch of my kids and, bouncing on the ball to Rebel Girl by Bikini Kill. I would listen to it on the way to protests. I'll listen to it on the way to a school board meeting. There is nothing that pumps me up. There's a line in it called, that says, when she walks, the revolution's coming. And I feel like that's my personal motto in everything I do in my life. So without a doubt, Bikini Kill. It's an old song. I love it.
Okay. I haven't heard this. I need to listen now.
You have to listen to it. It's good.
The fact that you're using this in so many life moments and it's working for all of them, it's clearly a very powerful song.
It's really good. It's really good.
Amazing. All right, Julienne, well, tell our listeners where they can find you, learn more about all the amazing efforts and work that you are up to, and help support the cause if they're interested in that.
Absolutely. So our website is headachealliance.org. You can find us on social media. We have accounts on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. I'm also personally on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with viewers there. And so, we are always looking for more advocates to tell their story and be part of this work. And even if you're not ready to do that and you just want to help, reach a support group or something like that, we can connect you to some other orgs doing really great work in this space.
Great. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for all the empowering and amazing work that you are doing to support those suffering from migraine disorder. Appreciate you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Mama Work It podcast. I hope you feel empowered, inspired, and ready to take your next step. If this episode spoke to you, share it with another amazing mama, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps us show up wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to head over to mamaworkit.com for free resources, coaching support, and new ways to momage your days as a busy mom. Until next time, keep on working it, mama.